Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to continue on with our next guest speaker. We've got a very prestigious racing driver and team principal with us, winner of the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the GT2 category in 2006, and co-owning and running the team based and founded by Zak Brown of the McLaren Formula One team. And of course, the man beside me is a very niche-based racing driver and team principal in his own right, and an amazing amount of talent. Please welcome Richard Dean, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed.
Excellent. I have to say, when I saw the list of people I'd be talking to today and the name Richard Dean came up, I was a little bit stargazed a bit, because I've been a massive fan of Le Mans for a long, long time, and I watched, as I'm sure many people did, on television in 2006 when you had that fantastic run in GT2, which must seem like a lifetime ago now, but it's spawned into so many different things since then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we were at Le Mans with United Autosports 2 years ago, which was the 10th anniversary of that win. So there's quite a few anniversaries at that time. It was the first time that Panos had won after 10 years of trying, won at Le Mans. So yeah, it was. I won't forget it.
So, like so many people in the world of motor racing, you started your career in the world of karting in the 1980s, and then moved into single-seaters to move your way up through the ladder, and become the racing driver and team owner that you are since then. What was it that initially got you started into motor racing? Where did it all begin?
Well, as usual, as quite often, my dad was into racing, so through the 60s and 70s he raced, not professionally, but quite successfully. So as a kid, being dragged around all the circuits up north of Croft and Rougheth, and I remember all those places. So yeah, that's where it really started, and as usual, like you said, get into karting, get a few breaks, be at the right place at the right time, get opportunities presented, and still managing to make a living somehow out of racing.
Yeah, you're one of those people who's very crafty in being able to race and run a team simultaneously, and I think that's what most people would like to be able to do as they move up through the echelons of motorsport. Good to see some more friends and colleagues joining in. One of the things I want to talk to you about in particular is in 1995, as well as your racing in sports cars, you also became the team boss of an entity called JLR. And one of the benefits of that, of course, was that you got to work with, I guess it's fair to say, two of the most talented racing drivers to come out of Great Britain in the last 20 years, who both sadly are now no longer with us, Justin Wilson and Dan Wheldon. What was it in those early days of motor racing that really inspired you to make the transition from racing driver into team management?
I ran out of money. So had a mortgage to pay, trying to earn a living. Realised I wasn't going to get to Formula One, all of that. I wanted to desperately stay in the sport, absolutely loved the sport, and didn't want to end up having to get a proper job, so I wanted to stay in the sport. So, driving to coaching to team manager to team owner, I don't know quite how it happened. It wasn't a plan, but it's how it transitioned. And as you quite rightly point out, we started with Team JLR in the mid-90s, and we ran a succession of very, very talented drivers. I think from my first days was just coming in, Ralph Furman Jr. had just driven for JLR, then Justin Wilson, Dan Wheldon, Rob Bell, and it goes on, and Christian England, and who went on to win the European Championship with us now. Some of the guys that I've got in the team then in the 90s are still with us now at United, and we still own Team JLR. I still kept that. It's still sat there, and I'm figuring out what we do with it in the future.
Is there a revival coming potentially?
A lot of people keep saying, we've got to get back into Formula Ford. It was a successful team. We won the British Championship in Formula Ford. We won the Formula Ford Festival with Dan Clark, British Championship with Tom Kimber-Smith, and some very talented drivers. And I remember Dan Wheldon and Justin both coming from karts at 16, 17 years old, and it was nice to be part and watching them come through us turn into professional drivers.
Now, we can't talk about your career in any depth without mentioning the Ginetta days, obviously working very closely with Lawrence Tomlinson and all of the guys over in Leeds. Just what did you learn from that time? How has that implemented your own strategies and your own workings as a team manager at United Autosports?
The Ginetta thing was interesting because you touched on doing Le Mans in GT2, and Lawrence Tomlinson, who is Mr. Ginetta, was my teammate. I was effectively his coach, and we decided Lawrence wanted to do GT2 and do Le Mans. We sort of I felt like we had a long-term plan to do that, and after we won in the first year, he decided that he didn't want to do it again necessarily. He moved on, which is Lawrence's way. He doesn't stand still very, very long. He bought Ginetta. I was working with Lawrence, and he said, "Right, Deanie, go in and tell me what Ginetta's all about, what we own, and what I've bought, and what we do with it." And we sat down and made a plan, and I hired some people, designers, designed the G50, which was the first new car, which has grown into the GT4 car, which is still the base car for the GT4 car, which is hugely successful. So again, you know, in a really short period of time, I went from being Lawrence's driver, coach, and teammate at Le Mans to running Ginetta for him, and we were designing cars and running one-make series. We got the Ginetta series on the Toka package. We came out with a junior car. So it was a good education in business and production, and you know, mistakes that we sort of made. Is you know, sometimes they're good. You know, we were a racing team that ended up as a car manufacturer, and you know, figuring out how that process works and why sometimes it doesn't work. So you know, Ginetta's still going from strength to strength. I left there to go back to what my passion is, which was to be competitive with a group of people and a group of drivers to try and go and win races.
So I've got a good answer to the question. I was there at Britcar in 2012 when Lawrence finished on the podium in one of his many Ginettas, and he sprayed me with champagne most ridiculously everywhere that day. I now know who to blame, so thank you for that, Richard. Yeah. It's all your fault. Thank you for that. In 2009, you went on to found United Autosports with one of the most revelationary figures in Formula One over the last 10 years or so, Zak Brown. United Autosports doesn't just race either, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and that's getting bigger. You know, I think when most people mention United Autosports, their initial thoughts is it's a race team, and that's the high-profile front of United. But you know, we're here at Silverstone representing Ligier, which we are UK agents for. We have a successful historic restoration side to the business. That's
my favourite wing of the business.
Yeah, you know, we've got something like 36 cars at the moment in our factory that are at various stages of restoration or preparation, or you know, we were maintaining them for clients. And we're moving into a new building. We actually signed for that on the 1st of November, so just yesterday. We move that into early in the new year, and that's going to. We're across 3 buildings across Yorkshire at the moment, on the same estate as Ginetta, actually, same industrial estate as Ginetta. But we're moving into a new building, which will launch a new phase for United, which is not just a racing team, but we're very much now a motorsport business that has Ligier cars underneath it, the restoration business. And we're going to launch a new division, which is more about performance products, and we've got partnership deals that we're here with HRX Racewear, which our drivers use at Le Mans. We had Montoya in our car and DeResta using HRX race suits, and we got a few other products coming online. So yeah, it's grown quite a lot. And Zak and I, from the original concept of let's start a race team and run an Audi in GT3, it's not quite sure how we got here so fast, but we did.
It's fantastic because there's so many different elements to the United Autosports team in so many different things going on. I know obviously that Zak Brown is very heavily involved with the brand and always has been. And now, of course, he has his commitments with McLaren Formula One. Just how heavily is he still involved with United Autosports on a day-to-day basis? Do you pretty much have to look after it now, or does he still very much be part of it?
Day-to-day, I pretty much do everything, but he's dialed in, well in touch with it. He understands, just joined us here in the packed auditorium. Is one of our drivers from LMP2, Hugo de Sadler, and we were racing at the last weekend in Portimao. Hugo finished on the podium. He finished on the podium at Le Mans.
Congratulations,
and,
Hugo.
During that race, as we were watching a 4-hour race in European Le Mans, my pocket was buzzing all the way through as my phone was vibrating, and every single message was from Zak. And bear in mind that the Mexican Grand Prix was about to start. He was on the, following that race from McLaren headquarters into their, I forget what they call it, the room that's dialed straight into the Grand Prix. He wasn't actually at the Grand Prix, but he was at the mission control, which tracks what's going on there. And just as the race build-up was starting in Mexico, he was following every single lap of the 4 hours. So he's very much, his enthusiasm is probably greater than anybody's. He's passionate about it, and he was asking me, why did we pit Hugo at this point, and at what point, what was the strategy at this, and he was tracking all the way through the race.
There's not many people in motor racing I can identify as more passionate than me, but I think Zak would definitely be one of them. I've heard him say in the past that racing drivers are full of adrenaline and aggression, which are obviously very good personality traits. He also said, if you're strong in a race car, you're strong as a businessman. Would you agree with that? Is that fair?
Well, it's an argument whether aggression's good as a personality trait, but in controlled, measured,
yes,
I would say.
Those are his words, not mine.
Yeah, they're not my words, but I think, for Zak in business, everybody probably knows him as his McLaren role, but prior to that, he had a hugely successful marketing company, the world's biggest in motorsport, that had sponsorship deals across Formula One, across IndyCar, across NASCAR, and he sold that to a big group before he went into McLaren. So if those are Zak's words in business, who would argue against that? There's nobody more successful in motorsport from me, in my eyes, from outside of being a driver. There's not many people make a profession out of sponsorship in motorsport. It's the hardest job in the paddock.
And he's definitely got it nailed down for the moment, at least. One of the things I wanted to touch on again is my love of historic motorsport is obviously something that's very much a part of United Autosports. I mean, Zak has told me over social media just what is in that garage, and I'm dying to get the keys to the warehouse at some point to go and have a look. The historic side of motor racing is ever more popular with the years to come. As the sport evolves, we want to harken back to the glory days of the sport. Do you see that part of the sport's growth is just going to continue to expand with United Autosports? Is that really where a lot of what you guys are doing is heading?
It's an interesting conversation, because there's got to be a point with historic cars that get more current, and I'm talking about cars in the early 2000s that are almost impossible to run in the future. So for me, there's a historic period that these cars can drop down into a private ownership that is manageable and can run, but there's going to be a period that actually old cars can't run, so they're very much a.
So what you're saying, for example, is, let's say, take for example, sort of mid-2003, 2004, there was a championship here in the UK which was called Formula Boss, which used to run vintage F1 cars from about sort of 98, 99.
Correct.
So they were only about 5 years old. I'm guessing, you count back 5 years, 2013, 2014, it's not really feasible to do that anymore.
Can't run those cars. So yeah, it's a good question, good debate, good evening in the pub over a pint of what historic cars in the future is going to be. But it's growing in popularity. I think partially that's because the value of those cars have been steadily increasing. So collectors, enthusiasts. It's been a good investment as well as fun. So I mean, if you can combine a great investment and a lot of fun, then it's going to grow, and I don't see that really stopping.
Now, we've talked about the fact that United Autosports, of course, is the UK dealer for Ligier, and the partnership is going beautifully at the moment. I mean, from strength to strength, the car is going well, the team is growing with it. Where did that deal come about? Who started that conversation?
It started here at Silverstone, actually, 2016. The first round of the European Le Mans Series was at Silverstone, and we just entered the European Le Mans Series with 2 Ligiers, and the owner of Ligier, Jacques Nicolet, is a passionate racing guy. He's raced himself, he's done Le Mans himself, and he acquired the Ligier brand and the rights to manufacture cars, which started as LMP3. It's been massively successful. It's taken off. I think they've got over 120 Ligier cars in LMP3 around the world alone.
Okay.
We've sold 24 Ligiers here in the UK. And it really was a simple conversation. They were sat in our hospitality. I said, do I have to drive to Magny-Cours to pick our parts up? Or have you got somebody here, stockist? No, we don't have anybody in the UK. Well, you should. And that was it, That's how it started. It was really that simple.
It's got to be a fairly difficult balance racing against the teams that you're selling cars to. I mean, how does that work when you're obviously trying to handle your own operation, and then there are other teams on the grid that you're basically selling cars to? How does that work?
Yeah, on the face of it, it does look difficult. You sell cars and then you go and race and beat them. But our market's the UK only. We sell only in the UK. United Autosports only races in the European Championship.
Handy.
And Asia. Next week we go to Shanghai. Sorry, next month we go to Shanghai. This month we go to Shanghai. Sorry, we're in 3 weeks' time. And our, United Autosports has raced in IMSA series this year, Daytona, Sebring, Watkins Glen. We've done the European series in European Le Mans. We're doing Asian Le Mans, but we haven't raced in the UK other than the one round at Silverstone, which is a European. So there's a balance, and as long as we get beaten every now and again, which we have been doing, people realise that there's no real. I mean, a lot of these series now are so locked down into the regulations, and there's nothing really you can do. We can't supply a better part to ourselves than anybody else because we're only allowed to use one part. Everybody's only allowed to use very homologated, tied-in, locked-down parts. So racing really is about the drivers, the setup, the engineers, and thankfully so far we've got a good relationship with all our UK competitors. Just having a meeting with Mark Owen from 360 Racing, who runs a very successful team. We went into the last round of the championship in Portugal with 360 Racing, which is one of our customers, RLR and United all vying for the title, and we got beaten. So RLR, worthy champions, our customer beat us. Yeah.
Any nerves there or not really? Did that touch a nerve?
Thankfully. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. I was happy for them. But they did a great job. Anybody who scores more than you over the course of the season's done a better job than you. So you've got to roll your sleeves up and figure out why, haven't you?
One of the questions I have to ask, especially with the way that the World Endurance Championship is going, obviously there's that niggling little problem in the background, and that's LMP1. There have been a few case studies in the last sort of 5-6 years of teams that have felt it was the right time to make the switch across and have not got it right. Even Nissan, a massive brand, have not managed to get it done right, and obviously Ginetta are still struggling to make it work. Why is it that United Autosports never really went down the LMP1 route? Is it something you're still pursuing, or is it one of those not wanting to run before you can walk scenarios?
No, I think the reason that you've just mentioned of why Ginetta found it difficult, and there's a lot of people who've gone in there and it hasn't worked out. The LMP1 and ACO regulations in the top class right now is, for me, is a little uncertain or confused or in a state of flux transition. There's nothing clear. We have to remember that underneath all of why we do this, because we love the sport, we're passionate about it, there's got to be this simple business premise that we have to have at least as much money coming into the business as goes out. Otherwise, we don't have a business. And for me, there's nothing you can, at the moment, there's nothing clear about LMP1 that you can commit to as a business. You can commit to it as a passion, and that usually gets you into trouble. You know, the LMP3 case is clear that, you know, an LMP3 Ligier is 207,000 euros fixed for 5 years. That price can't go up. It can't change. The parts prices can't change. So when you're fixed for 5 years like that, actually you start to look at a proper business case. You invest in a car that over 5 years you've got, you know, some significant use out of, and in 5 years is still worth a lot of money. LMP1 for me at the moment doesn't make any sense, other than for perhaps Toyota. Even that doesn't quite add up for me. But
no, it's not quite a world championship in the right sense, is it?
No, and I don't think they've quite landed on it yet, and I think the ACO don't quite know yet exactly what it's going to be. There's a lot of talk about the new regulations for the hypercar, or LMP1 hypercar or whatever, and until it comes out and it's clear and it's fixed and it's firm and it's written down and you've got longevity of regulations, you can't really commit to anything.
Makes a lot of sense. I noticed recently in the press that Ligier have just launched a JS2R motorcar, which is basically marking 50 years since Guy Ligier first set up the brand of Ligier to mark the 50th anniversary. So it's a big moment for Ligier as a brand. Is there a chance we're going to see a United Autosports liveried JS2R? Is that going to happen?
Well, the first time that anybody's ever seen the new Ligier GT car, JS2R, is here. And it's here downstairs in the garage. It was launched at the Paris Motor Show last week. This is as you say, it's a 50th anniversary celebration GT car. They've got high hopes for it to be a GT4 car in the future, but you know, they're taking the right steps, one step at a time. It'll be a cup car, one make series in France in 2019. We'll have the car on our stand at the Autosport show. There won't be a UK series for it in 19, but we've got high hopes in 2020.
And I'm guessing the idea is that for this car to basically compete with the sort of the Ginettas and the Marcoses of this world, to go into the same sort of ethos.
Yeah, you know, the Ginetta Cup has been massively successful. It's you know, what Lawrence has done for grassroots motor racing over this last few years, especially since the credit crisis, the recession. You have to say that certainly a lot of the teams didn't really feel that as hard as the rest of the world or other businesses did. And you know, I genuinely put a lot of that down to Lawrence's commitment with Ginetta at grassroots. You know, the G40, the G50 that they produced has created affordable racing that's just in touching distance of the enthusiasts in the country. And the Ligier JS2R is exactly the same concept. And you know, Ligier is a French brand, and that's where they're going to launch it there first. And there's 2 days testing with customers next week at Magny-Cours, and they've already sold out. I think they've got 32 or 36 customers there that are trying the car, and I expect that will be a big success. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Anything that makes exciting racing and close racing affordable, then we're all for.
Sounds fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes. I'd love to talk to you more, but I know that we're pressed for time and you have a couple of meetings to go to this afternoon. Hopefully they're all going to be very prosperous, and we're going to hear the outcomes of those very shortly. I'd like to invite you to thank Richard for giving his time. It's been fantastic hearing what he's got to say about the team, and hopefully the endeavours of 2019 with the GT car and with United Autosports in total are going to be very, very prosperous. Thank you very much, Richard Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
So, a massive thank you to Richard for giving his time to come and speak to us about the United Autosports team. We have got more sessions over the course of the day. If you wanted to hear all of that and you've only just joined at the tail end of it, don't fear. All of the sessions over the course of today and tomorrow are being recorded, and a week following the event you'll be able to hear them on a catch-up service via the Downforce UK podcast network, so you'll be able to hear everything that's gone on from every session. We are going to reconvene again at 12:45 Obviously, we need to give way to the next driver's briefing, I do believe, but we'll be back on the stage at 12:45. So do please bear with us, and we will return to action very shortly. Thanks very much.